H for Hustle podcast. Welcome back, man, guys. So today's episode. Every time I do these episodes, I get really pumped. Sometimes, what the guests say really excites me. But today's guest, Shawn Walchef, really, I left this call feeling pumped. I left this call feeling motivated. I left this call saying like, man, this audience is gonna really love this guy. I also left feeling, man, there's so much that I have to get done within my business and how much more I have to do. Today's episode, we talk to Shawn Walchef, founder of Cali BBQ Media, and we talk about how he used like that Gary Vaynerchuk model, build a digital first. Each business is a media company, and how he uses Gary Vaynerchuk's like model to help build his barbecue business, and how during Corona and COVID-19 and during the pandemic and things being shut down, how his business actually got even more profitable during this time. And that's because of all the work that he did on digital already, and how he uses digital to continues to keep pushing his brand and pushing Cali Barbecue Media. This is a fantastic episode. Shawn drops a lot of gems in this episode. Keep your ears open on this one, because every sentence he says is almost like a gem that you can take and apply right away. So make sure you guys listen intently. This is the banger of an episode. Let's get into it right now. H for Hustle podcast. Welcome back. We have another great guest. We have Shawn Walchef. Shawn, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Shawn, if I was to meet you at I guess we have to call it a virtual dinner, right? Or a virtual meeting right now, what would you tell people you do for a living?
I own a barbecue media company. So we're serious about barbecue and we're serious about media.
Barbecue and media, those two things don't always go together. So how did you get started in that?
So I took over an existing breakfast restaurant in 2008 with one of my closest friends from college.
Okay.
We had an opportunity. We were doing real estate. We had a real estate company. We were fixing up single family residential real estate properties, renting them out, and then also selling them. That was the market crashed 2008, and we started looking at different opportunities. Not the best idea to invest in a unproven restaurant concept in a part of San Diego that most people said to avoid. There aren't other restaurants. There aren't other corporate restaurants. There aren't other independent restaurants. I mean, we're really in a off the beat part of town where it's kind of a mixed bag. We have residential, commercial, industrial, tire shops, churches, liquor stores, you name it. You wouldn't expect to find a family restaurant where we're
in that one section. Yeah. So was it just kind of based off of like the market crashing, you had to make a move, so that's why you went into restaurateuring? Was there a reason?
No, I mean, because for us, I mean, we were young and naive, and I mean, the market crashing really didn't have anything to do with us. It had to do with an opportunity to take over an existing liquor license.
Okay.
Liquor license allowed us to sell beer, wine, liquor, and spirits as long as we were selling food. There was an existing breakfast business that had been in the community for a couple decades. So people knew that it was a place to get food. They just never had it as a bar. They never had it as a family-friendly sports bar, which is what compelled us to do that. Is we always thought that because NFL kicks off at 10 a.m. on Sundays on the West Coast, it would be great to have a place that had phenomenal breakfast, but also you could bring the family and the kids, but dad could also catch the first half of the game while he's enjoying breakfast.
So almost like a beer garden in a sense.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, got it. So let's go back a little bit. What got you into entrepreneurship? Was it something that you saw growing up, or like how did you get into this?
My grandfather, he was a medical doctor. He was born in a village in Bulgaria, born to be in poverty, born to be a farmer. And his grandfather taught him a love of reading, a love of curiosity. And that really inspired him to read as much as he could about successful people, about all different types of topics. And that led him to become a medical doctor, and then he moved over here to the United States. My mom and had my uncles eventually moved us to San Diego. But after his medical career, he was about 60, and instead of retiring, he started developing real estate. He started reading more books, started his own business. He started his own retirement home.
Wow.
He started the breakfast restaurant of the same location, but he leased it out to another woman who ran it. So he was always learning, always driven to learn something new, to acquire a new skill, to diversify his portfolio. And it was something that, keeping his mind active and investing in things, getting involved in things was something that I grew up with. He raised me as his son, because
Okay.
I never met my father. So I watched him every day and his consistent, persistent pursuit of becoming a better man.
Gotcha. So that kind of just poured into you. So naturally, you just thought entrepreneurship was the way for you to go.
Kind of. I mean, he was a medical doctor, and I know he wanted me to. He paid for a private education for me, and for him, he wanted me to be a medical doctor. But that wasn't something that I was excited about. I was more interested in the law at the time, so I
Okay.
studied, tried to get into law school. Got rejected by all three law schools here in San Diego, and really at that point, it was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? He needed help. He was, getting older in age. He wanted to write his life story, his life memoir of how he did what he did. And I helped him do that, but I also helped him with his business, with his
Gotcha.
residential real estate, his commercial real estate.
And then you just being there by osmosis just picked up how to kind of go about doing most of this.
Yeah, I learned a lot of things that he did right. And I also learned a lot of things that he did wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that he did is he didn't like to invest in advisors around him. So he wasn't paying for the best attorneys, wasn't paying for the best insurance. He kind of had an old school mentality of, saving every penny, which allowed him to accumulate a lot of wealth. Unfortunately, because,
Misguided wealth as well.
because of the state that we're in, unless you protect yourself, then all that wealth can vanish.
Dissipate, yeah, very quickly. Yeah, California is very crazy with the taxes and the laws. And if you don't set yourself up in older age, you definitely will be knocked for that.
Yeah.
Um, so then you buy you get into the restaurant business after the market kind of goes down. Do you keep it as the same bread and breakfast that it was, or do you kind of turn it into something different? And why barbecue is the next question.
So we took the core business. I mean, we were built on breakfast. That was the existing breakfast concept. So we used all the things that were successful in the community that had. That's why people kept coming in. We
Hmm.
had some of the same cooks, some of the same recipes, but we added the sports bar, we added TVs, we added, the entertainment side of it, upgraded the facility, added the full liquor license, so added draft
Wow.
beer on draft, cocktails, and slowly kind of tried to figure things out along the way of how do we get people to care about what we're doing. How do we make something that's compelling that makes people want to come in and tell their friends about? And it was really because of our involvement in the community. We always, no matter what, try our best to help whenever we can. If a local charity or a local sports organization or a local firehouse, they need help raising money, or they need gift cards, or they need a raffle or a place to gather, we were always the first to say yes. How can we help? Um, we started doing a lot of different fundraising for local youth sports teams, kids that
Okay.
couldn't pay for their registration fees, kids that couldn't pay for equipment. And for me, growing up playing sports, I learned, I mean, there's times where I learned more from some of my coaches than I did from some of my teachers.
Yeah.
Organized sports was something that, really I cherished. And a lot of the discipline that I have, a lot of the hustle that I have, I learned on the basketball court or the football field. So
Gotcha. So you just wanted to give back, and and when you were doing that, did that like then turn into, I guess, people start seeing the location, you start holding more fundraisers at the location, people start coming in, and it starts trickling business after that?
yeah, and it's got to the point where we were doing so many fundraisers, every week that administratively it was a lot of work.
Hmm.
We're like, there's got to be a better way to make a bigger impact on our community, raise more money, and why don't we organize an annual event, kind of a community festival, and bring in
Oh,
other businesses that are in our area, and do something that's different, unique, that people can get excited about every year. That will help us make a bigger impact. And we threw around some ideas. The best idea was to do an amateur barbecue contest, which,
uh-huh.
we thought we were going to just shut down our parking lot and have a couple of the coaches cook some barbecue in our parking lot, and bring out the families and the teams. But the interest level was so high that we ended up having to shut down the entire street in
Wow.
front of our restaurant, partner with the Spring Valley Chamber of Commerce, I went down the street to the local butcher shop and asked them to be the title sponsor to provide the team's meat. And that was, the biggest thing was I didn't know how to put on an amateur barbecue contest.
Yeah.
So I went on the internet and found Kansas City Barbecue Society, they're essentially the NFL of sanctioning professional barbecue contests,
Yeah.
and asked them if there was anyone local that could help me organize this event. And they gave me a list of 3 names, and one of the names was Gene Goycochea. He was pretty much the only one that responded, not only responded, but came out to the restaurant, met with me, said, if you're doing it to help the kids, I'll teach you how to put on the event. We met for hundreds of hours to put on the
Wow.
first event, and subsequent every year. It's 10 years
Okay.
now. We've put on that event for 10 years. And that was what led us to, after we did that first event, Gene said, what do you think about adding some barbecue to your menu? And like I said, at that point, our menu was all over the place. I thought that doing craft barbecue, low and slow,
Yeah.
cooking it in old hickory pits, doing it the way that it's done in the barbecue meccas of the United States would really give us a distinct advantage in San Diego, because there really weren't many barbecue restaurants at the time
Gotcha.
slow smoking barbecue.
So it's almost like you stumbled upon the barbecue idea just by trying to throw this event.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you get to be known for barbecue. So was that where the media thing came in as well? Because if you think about it, you're going to get so much press from shutting down a block and having people do an annual event.
Yeah, part of my entrepreneurial journey has been trying things,
Hmm.
being willing to listen, being willing to lean into a good idea, even though many people said that it wasn't a good idea to organize an amateur barbecue contest. It would be way too much work, not a big enough return. What's your ROI of spending all this time, spending all this money? Because there was lots of years where, myself and Derek, who owns the butcher shop, that we were the primary sponsors. So, we could have easily just cut a check and not done any of it.
Yeah.
But then we wouldn't have built a community of people that care about barbecue, that amateur barbecue cooks, that they're not ready to compete in the Kansas City barbecue event, but they can come to the amateur event and learn and test and see how good their barbecue is
Yes,
against
yes.
other people, and they can do it for a good cause.
Yeah, and then when they do get that, if they do win, it also gives them that notch that they maybe can go into the Super Bowl of barbecuing.
Yes, exactly. That was their side hustle.
Yeah.
So, cooking in the backyard, listening to barbecue podcasts, watching barbecue on YouTube, watching pitmaster shows, like, people are inspired to cook, and then they cook for their family. The family goes, this is phenomenal. Let's invite our friends.
Hmm.
Friends come, this is phenomenal. Somewhere in the back of your mind is like, well, can I make a business out of this? Or can I compete and win money?
Yeah.
And they start going down that road, listening to people that have done it, how they've done it. And, we're proud to say that a lot of barbecue businesses we've been able to help support just through podcasting, just through our barbecue events, just through awareness and really putting the West Coast barbecue
Okay.
movement on the map.
Map. So you guys almost stumbled on becoming like the flagship for San Diego
Sure.
in the barbecue movement.
Hmm.
Wow, that's awesome. And so then you transit. So the place transitions into more of a barbecue location because
Yeah.
of that one event, and kind of keeps going on. How do you completely transition into making it like a barbecue family friendly place and kind of get rid of the rest of the menu?
Yeah, well, that's happened during coronavirus for sure.
Okay.
We've gotten rid of 90% of our menu. We're no longer open for breakfast on Saturday and Sunday. Uh,
Mm,
but the gradual progression happened after the first barbecue event. We decided that we were going to add barbecue to our menu. Probably within a year, once we realized that we really had something that was different, unique, that people really liked, we decided that it's going to be no longer Cali Comfort. We're going to be Cali Comfort BBQ. We're going to be plant our flag, and this is who we are moving forward. And that was probably one of the scariest but best decisions that we made, because um, it gave us our calling card.
yeah.
Like I said, anybody in San Diego doing barbecue, if you talk, when I go to the National Barbecue Association, we go to these conferences where there's people like the founder of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, Deuce
Mhm.
Raymond, and his uncle. When we talk to them, or Amy Mills and Mike Mills from 17th Street Barbecue, or anybody from Austin, or from Central Texas, they think it's laughable that people in San Diego are doing barbecue, because that's not what we're known for. We're known for fish tacos. We're known for carne asada burritos,
Yeah.
California burritos. But we've learned how to do it the right way, and we've learned how to promote it in a way that it's not always about us. It's about celebrating craft barbecue as a movement. So most barbecue places won't go to Coop's West Texas Barbecue, Bradrick Cooper, he's a close friend, and go and ask him, can you come sell barbecue in front of our restaurant during this barbecue event? And then go to the butcher shop and say, can you sell barbecue also for this barbecue event? All of these people selling barbecue in front of our barbecue business to raise money, but then it brings awareness and it lets people know that it's bigger than us. It's not just us against each other, because his barbecue is completely different.
Yeah.
It's a Central Texas style barbecue. It's not what we do. What we do is completely different.
Got you. So now how do you then start? Because, before we got on the show, I spent so much time on your YouTube channel. You guys create so much content. When did the media piece come into it? Because you said you're Cali BBQ Media. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So because of our location, because
I'm so sorry. Can you give me 1 second? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so because we opened in 2008 in an area of San Diego that people didn't think there should be a restaurant, we learned early on that if we were going to survive, that we had to learn how to do marketing.
Mm-hmm.
We had to try traditional means of marketing. We had to try unconventional means of marketing. We realized that Facebook, as much as I thought it was a joke, because I thought just my business partner, Corey, was just on there to pick up girls. I realized that you can actually start a Facebook business page and post updates on your specials, updates on events, updates about what's happening in the community. We learned early on that it was important for us to do that, and we got a lot of business because of it. We started caring about our Yelp page. We started caring about being on Twitter. We started caring about Instagram when Instagram came out. We realized, 5 years into running the business, I was doing research about press releases and about how to get, the local media to care about what you do and how you're doing it and how to write a press release. And I worked really hard trying to, craft this press release that we'd been open for 5 years in a part of San Diego that, typically
no one goes to.
Everybody ignored, and nobody cared. No one gave a shit. And that was the time when I kind of realized, well, if they don't care, I'm going to need to make them care. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to have to be different. I'm going to have to, do more with the barbecue events, try to raise more money, try to develop deeper relationships.
Gotcha.
One of the things that has helped us a lot was Twitter. Twitter is something I went to a podcast movement conference, and there was a woman, Winnie Sun, that gave a presentation, and what she said was, a lot of people ignore Twitter, but what people don't understand is that all of legacy media is on Twitter.
Yeah.
So if you're a writer, if you work for the newspaper, if you work for the radio station, if you work for the TV, chances are the primary platform you use is Twitter.
Yeah.
Because that's how you can get information out fast. So we started doing Twitter, and I started not just the Cali Comfort account, but my own personal account.
Uh-huh.
I realized that it was easier for me to tweet in the first person than it was to speak on behalf of the brand.
Oh.
It felt more like I was promoting the brand, and instead I could just talk about who I was and what I cared about.
Yeah.
And that was really the beginning of me kind of establishing my own personal brand outside of the restaurant. Of course, I am the restaurant, Cali Barbecue Media, but now people know Shawn Walchef also, and they, can follow me separately from the restaurant, but it's also, who am I and what am I doing?
So when you were on Twitter, did you then reach out to some of these legacy media people, some of these writers, some of these TV people? Did you start reaching out to them there?
Yeah, we would do everything. We would reach out. We would reach out on Twitter. We'd send direct messages. We were doing something. We would follow the people that were covering food or covering events. We got opportunities to go to local news stations to promote the event because it was a charity. And because it was a charity, going on news for the first time was terrifying for me. It was terrifying because I was going on essentially as a barbecue expert, and I'm the farthest from a barbecue expert. I was, Gene's my barbecue expert. So worrying about, well, they're going to ask me a question about, some technical aspect of cooking barbecue that I might not be able to answer correctly. Once I got over those fears and realized that nobody was going to tell the Cali barbecue media story better than I was, no one was going to tell the Village community festival story better than I was, I started finding my voice and started
Gotcha.
improving, each time. But when we went there, we were also taking photos. We were also taking video, doing behind the scenes, putting that on social media, tagging the local anchor that came out to talk to us, feeding not just the anchor, but feeding the entire lighting team, the people that were at the station, the people that were
Gotcha.
behind the scenes, because that was an opportunity for us to show what we do. And we have incredible barbecue. My team, they do an incredible job slow smoking barbecue. Why wouldn't we feed them? Does it cost us money? Absolutely. But when we take care of them the way that we do, they start to think of us
Mm-hmm.
when they're thinking about Memorial Day and we need to do a barbecue segment.
Gotcha. So I can hear my audience thinking right now, and also me personally, like running a business and then doing the content and the media side of it is almost a whole nother business within itself. It is very, 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 very time consuming. How do you split the time and make a time for that?
I would argue that it's more important now to do the content and the digital before your actual business. And I think
Go
that
go into that a little bit more. Why is that? Why do you think that?
the most important real estate is the internet real estate, is
Mm.
search. So if you're not available on a platform, your product, your service, who you are, what you do in your market, if you're not available on Yelp, if you don't have a profile with updated photos, I don't care what kind of business you are. It's not just for restaurants. If you're an attorney, I would tell you the same thing. And I do tell my attorney friends the same thing. We found our daycare by searching a daycare in our area.
Yeah.
Yelp had the best SEO results. So Yelp said, here's the top 10 daycares. Only 2 of those daycares actually had an updated profile where they had
Oh.
photos, where they had updated information, where they had a mobile first website that we could easily book a tour of the facility. All the other ones that had been recommended by person, they had terrible websites. They had no idea what was happening with digital. And I'm 38, so I don't consider myself old, but I'm certainly not young. But I know that parents that are younger than I am, they're going to do the same thing. So just because business has been done a certain way in the past, all the opportunity now is on digital.
Yeah.
All the opportunity is finding how can you find your voice, what you care about, what you do, and then claiming it across all those platforms, but then creating content that's valuable to people in all those platforms.
And that backs it up. That you're 100% correct. I just know that most people, like, they're running whatever business, and then for them to post on Instagram and LinkedIn and everything else, they think it's such a chore. But you're right; it is the thing that makes other people find you and grow your business exponentially. It's just
Yeah.
that I know that a lot of people look at it as almost like a secondary thing now.
Yeah, and I would argue that it's the most important thing. I mean, it is literally the most important thing, and that's how people find out quickly. I mean, I had Casey Adams on my digital hospitality podcast, which I put out once a week. This is a young kid. He's 19 years old. He's interviewed 6 different billionaires. He's interviewed Larry King. His podcast is called The Rise of the Young.
Hmm.
And the whole reason I got him on the podcast was when we met, he checked my Instagram profile. Immediately, that was my business card for him. He wanted to see if I was legit.
Yeah.
Once he checked my Instagram profile, he realized that, I have something I can offer him. He has something that he can offer me. And then now we have a digital relationship, which
Hmm.
has turned into something more because I've spent time with him on my podcast, and now I'm invested in his journey.
Yeah.
Now I carry his story forward. There's so much business that's happening in direct messages
Yeah.
that people are just ignoring. And just because you don't like LinkedIn because you've been getting spammed by certain salespeople doesn't mean that LinkedIn can't work for you to find that connection in the company that's going to scale your business
Yeah.
and get your family to, buy your next house or get your kids to, who knows what it is. I
Yeah.
don't know what that is, but that all those gifts are there, and it's right in everybody's pocket.
Yeah, and like you said, right in your pocket. Because LinkedIn, I'll be honest, is where I've been making most of my connections, and based on what I've been putting out on there, is where I've been getting a ton of other people reaching out to me based off of LinkedIn. So I definitely do agree with you, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of moved more into the content side of business,
Mhm.
because it just makes more sense. So right now there's somebody who's an entrepreneur. They have a very small business and they want to make content because they know that it's the right thing. What are 3 steps you would give them to kind of get going in the content? What kind of content would you tell them to create?
So the problem with content creation is that it sounds complicated, and it
Hmm.
sounds arduous, and it sounds difficult. What I would suggest is understanding that content comes down to 3 things, and that's audio, video, and written word. The hardest thing to produce is something that's overproduced, which is what everyone thinks you need to make. You need to make something sexy that's compelling, that looks like, this incredible YouTube video. Well, yeah, there's a place for that, but really the best content happens out of your pocket. It's actual, real, raw content of who you are and what you do. If you turn that phone on and you go live on Facebook and you say, "This is who I am, this is where I'm at, I'm struggling because I don't know what to produce, but I know that I need to start making videos." Every single day that you do that, you're going to start making better videos. You're going to start getting one person that goes, "Thank you for saying what I believe," because you're not the only person that's starting to understand that I need to make content.
Mm.
Every single business is going to start to understand at some point that the marketing that they've been doing in the past is incorrect. All those terrible, shitty emails that they're sending out, they should be turning a video on to the CEO and talking to the CEO. Talk to the sales rep and say, "What's important? We have all these meetings every single week about all this bullshit, and nobody cares about what we're doing on social media." Social media isn't the only answer, though. My number one suggestion is to care about your website. If you care about your website and creating content for your website first, that's the engine that's going to drive your e-commerce business. That's
Gotcha.
really the thing that no algorithm is going to change outside of, yes, how Google does their search results. But ultimately, you produce it for your website first,
Gotcha.
written, audio, video, and then you distribute it differently to the different platforms. Somebody on
Gotcha.
LinkedIn is different than somebody on Twitter, is
Yeah.
different than somebody that's on Facebook. And number 2 is to not discriminate platforms. Everybody has a problem with some platform because of some reason. And
Hmm.
there's a reason to think that every platform, but there's people there. There's people. If I'm not on Uber Eats, that doesn't mean that there's people in the neighborhood that are ordering from Uber Eats. So if barbecue is not an option for them, they're going to give their money to someone
Somebody
else.
else. Yeah. And you got
It's
to
not
be where they are everywhere.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, completely good advice. So you're saying make content that lives on your website. So if it's a
Correct.
blog, write your blog. If it's video, put it on video, and then take that same piece of content and splice it and put it on other content, other
Correct.
platforms. Got
Correct.
it. And so this sounds very much like Gary Vee. Gary Vee has like a very similar concept.
Gary Vee is my spirit animal. I love him.
Got you. So it's
Yes.
you make one key piece of content and then split it up over
Yeah.
other pieces of format.
And if
Okay,
people
great.
aren't listening to Gary Vee, he's giving a gift that has never been given. I mean, he's at scale giving out incredible strategic
Hmm.
business advice, digital advice, life advice.
Yeah.
And the problem is, most people, you're either going to resonate with him or not.
Yeah.
But maybe he's not your cup of tea. Then follow Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Find out what Joe Rogan's doing. Follow Tim Ferriss,
Yeah.
David Meltzer. He's a business coach of mine, and he's putting out incredible content as well. Find whoever that person is that's digitally showing up where you want to
Want to
be,
be and just
and follow them and
yeah.
listen to them and do what they say. That watch what they're doing, because they
Yeah.
might say something, but they do something else. If they're doing something else and they're leaning into that,
Yeah.
chances are that there's a reason why they're leaning into that.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I learned from watching Gary Vee. He's like, "Don't worry about what I'm saying. Watch what I'm doing," and I
Correct.
love that. And if you watch how they put out content, the times, everything, it's like one of the most incredible things to. And he's giving away at scale in such a rapid timeline. So it's important.
More.
Um,
It's more, not less.
yeah.
The answer is always more.
So how do you have a team that helps you create this content, or are you doing this most of all this on your own? Your podcast, your blog, all of that stuff.
So before we started our our podcast, which was in 2017, I was doing social media all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that, the reason why Gary resonated with me so much is that he was the first person that I had read in a magazine, it was Entrepreneur Magazine, or heard on a podcast that was literally speaking the same language that I was speaking,
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to build our restaurant and our brand. I was literally able to do it on the backs of the smartphone by using all of these different social media platforms, by understanding that this is how people are communicating, this is where people are, this is where our barbecue restaurant needs to be, and leveraging media as well to amplify that message. So, for me, once we started doing the podcast is when I hired a producer. So
Mm-hmm.
originally I had a producer, Corey Wagner was the producer of the podcast. And then I knew that I wanted show notes. So I started investing knowing that I wanted the podcast to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I started reading about podcasts. I started listening to how do you make a podcast. I started going to podcast conferences, and the people that were doing it, like Tim Ferriss, they invested heavily in the show notes. That
Yeah.
was the written side. Now, 3 years later, I have a producer, Stover, who's in Portland, Oregon. He produces the podcast. He produces content for the restaurant. He helps really bring together all the written video and audio content that we're putting out in a way that's strategic, not just for our restaurant, but also for our media company.
Got you.
And now I also have a writer in Austin, Texas, Ian Stonebrook, who's been phenomenal because he's allowing Stover to do higher level work for our brand.
Got you. Now, that's great advice, and I could hear my audience saying, but yeah, this guy is established. So I can go back to when you were running everything, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what did you prioritize over, did you say LinkedIn's better, Instagram's better? Should I go live? Did you have like a schedule? How did you set yourself up where you were able to produce on a consistent level?
I
And,
think,
and then,
I
and then still you have to run your business too. Still have to run a restaurant. So how did you like break all that up?
and that goes back to another reason why Gary resonated with me so much, is that it became part of my DNA early on.
Mm-hmm.
Once we were struggling to get people into the restaurant, I knew that I had to take photos and publish those photos onto Facebook. I had to write copy on Facebook that was engaging to make somebody care to click it, or to come in for an event, or to share it as an event. That was a daily process. So taking a better photo meant I would get a better engagement on the post, or a better likelihood of a share.
Gotcha.
That was the same thing once Instagram came out. That was the same thing with Twitter. But it's constantly learning, because whatever's popular in 2012 is different than what's popular today.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about TikTok, and there's a reason they're talking about TikTok, because it's popular. So
Yeah.
I've hired a part-time photographer, amateur photographer, just started doing incredible work he has his own TikTok following. And now he's running our Instagram food-focused account, and he's running our TikTok account. And I want him to just produce content that's creative and that's exciting for him.
Gotcha.
Because I want him to produce more, not less.
Got you. And it's the answer is always more. The more you do, more. And so, spending that time doing the digital things, how did that affect your business? Did you start seeing an incremental tick, or was there like one moment where you did something and it was like a big boom, like it happened right away?
That's a great question. And that's part of the toughest part of the message of David Meltzer and Gary Vaynerchuk, is that it's a long game. So
Mm-hmm.
Getting into content creation for the immediate ROI, or justifying why am I spending time learning how to send a tweet and nobody cares, it can be discouraging. It can be very discouraging. But what you have to understand is that little bit of time that you spend every day on Twitter, composing a tweet, responding to a topic, following a hashtag, posting about an event, that little time that you spend on Instagram stories, posting your story, figuring out who's engaging, figuring out who's sending you a direct message, establishing an actual relationship with a fan, somebody that cares.
Yeah.
All of those things, day after day, time after time, they start to scale to the point where you have oh shit moments where I'm on Twitter and I'm driving to the restaurant and I'm listening to Jim Trotter, who's an NFL writer, on the local sports radio. He's talking to Dave Palais and Jeff Dotseth. They're talking about Junior Seau's book that Jim Trotter has just finished.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Trotter's promoting his book, and they're talking about that they used to all get together at Junior Seau's restaurant in San Diego to watch the fights. Anytime there was a big boxing fight, anytime there was a UFC fight, they would go and watch the fights there. Obviously, Junior Seau committed suicide. Trotter was promoting the book. That weekend, there was a Pacquiao fight. I was listening in the car on the radio and of them having this conversation about Junior Seau's restaurant. Once I got to the restaurant, I sent out a tweet to Jim Trotter, Jeff Dotseth, and Dave Palais and said, really enjoyed, the conversation about Junior's fight nights at his restaurant. We'd love to have you guys come out as our guest for this upcoming Pacquiao fight. Jeff Dotseth and Jim Trotter both came out to the restaurant.
Wow.
And the VIP treatment. And that started a deep friendship where those three guys are now three of my closest friends and confident people that I respect in sports media that tell me all kinds of stories, that give me all kinds of access, that truly care about me, truly care about my family, and I truly care about them. And literally, if it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't have that relationship.
Yeah. And it was for you being smart and listening to the conversation, saying, oh, there's an opportunity here. And it's just actually shooting out that message that actually helped you tremendously. And now you have friends and, probably the tremendous amount of business they've brought in for you probably has been unbelievable.
Yeah. And that, there's no amount of money that you can put on it. I mean, I'll give a challenge to all of your listeners, and they can listen to, the podcast that they love the most. I guarantee you the host has a call to action for all the listeners. Mm-hmm. Hey, send me a tweet. Hey, send me an email if you have a question. Only 2% of people actually do that call to action because they're scared. What if Gary Vee doesn't respond to me? Yeah. I've sent Gary 2 different emails. He responded both times.
Yeah.
I've sent Ariana Huffington, who started Huffington Post.
And Thrive Global.
Now Thrive Global.
Yeah.
I've sent her an email after listening to her on Tim Ferriss's podcast. She gives a call to action. Tim says, please don't give out your email. There's way too many millions of people that listen to this podcast. It's gonna break your server. And she's like, no, I'm gonna give it out anyways. And I sent her an email, and now I've sent 3 different emails that she's corresponded with me with articles that I've written on her platform.
Wow.
That's the world we live in.
Wow.
All That's those amazing. Gifts are there for anybody, whoever you care about, whoever you're compelled by. If you care about LeBron James and his new media company, guess what? There's probably an opportunity for you, if you can add value to them, for them to sit down for 5 minutes to talk to you about whatever project you're trying to create.
And the great part is it's all being done off of this one thing. You have a supercomputer and a connective to almost anyone in the world at one point.
And there's no gatekeepers. Yeah. I mean, the best people on digital, the best people that are winning right now, they have teams, but the chances are they're running their own Instagram account. Yeah. They'll see the DM. You have to be compelling in the DM. And you have to also, if you're not compelling, understand, hey, they're probably getting thousands of messages. Mm-hmm. So maybe they didn't see this one. Yeah. Next week, I'll send another one. And the next week, I'll send another one. And then next week, I'll send another one. I'm going to comment on every one of their posts. And then eventually, they're going to be like, wow, this person cares about what I'm doing.
Gotcha. And then eventually they're going to respond and kind of get from there. That's so true. I mean, a lot of the times when I tell people, hey, hit me in the DMs, shoot, there's, like you said, it's a small group of people that actually do. But when you do, I get this great insight and this great back and forth. And then sometimes they're getting free coaching out of me just because they're hitting me up. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's awesome. And, again, just like this, it's just a random occurrences, and now you and I are talking, and your restaurant's right where my brother doesn't live that far from where your restaurant.
Now your brother's going to come to the restaurant.
Exactly.
And when you come to San Diego, you're going to come to the restaurant.
Yeah, and it's just going to trickle.
When anyone talks about San Diego and they're talking about barbecue, you're going to talk about me. Like, that's how it works.
Yeah, that's huge. That makes it huge. So, again, right now we're in COVID-19. How has that affected like your business? How has that transitioned your business, and what kind of content are you making towards that? I guess it's a 2-part question.
So COVID-19 has proved our digital hospitality thesis, and that's that every business needs to be digital first. Mm-hmm. You have to be digital, and you have to be in the hospitality business. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be people, because humans are the heart of technology. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to respond to people digitally, just as you do if we were opening our doors for a restaurant. We knew right when the coronavirus was happening that we had to pivot.
Hmm.
And because we weren't going to be able to have people dine in the restaurant, that everything that we were going to be doing were things that we had already started doing, which was mobile first website, order online, also add delivery platforms. So we added, we were already doing DoorDash, but we added Uber Eats and we added Grubhub. And now we're literally running a digital restaurant. There is
Wow.
nobody that comes in to dine in. We have people, as the state has opened back up, that have really wanted us to open up our bar and our restaurant. And we miss having people in there. We miss having our servers. We miss having our bartenders. But the full service restaurant model was broken. In order to provide great hospitality, our labor cost was too high. Our food costs were too high.
Yeah.
Now what we're doing is the most profitable we've ever been in 12 years of running the restaurant.
Got you.
We are more excited about opening more restaurants now than we ever have been, because we know that as long as we are strong and dominating on digital, making sure that we're everywhere that we need to be, then the more locations that we have in San Diego, the more access that we can give to people that want great barbecue. And
Got you.
the problem with great barbecue is it takes time and it takes expertise. But if
Mm,
we can cook slow food and deliver it fast,
fast.
deliver
Yeah.
it digitally, where you're sitting at the beach and you go, hey, we've got 10 guys, like, let's just get some tri-tip sandwiches. I'm going to order it on my phone. They're going to bring it right to me. Like, that's my goal. I
Yeah.
want to be able to do that. I want to be able to
Gotcha.
have somebody sitting, at their church and go, well, we didn't get a catering for today. Like, can we get pulled pork sliders from Cali? Yes. Boom. Done. Delivered.
Yeah. Got you. So it's actually made you, the thesis that you were building on, it's now giving you a chance to kind of fully see it, and you're running a more leaner operation because of it.
We knew it was going to happen. We didn't have the financial proof that
Mm,
what we were talking about actually would correlate into a more profitable business model. Now that COVID-19 has forced us to be where we are, um, the most important thing that any restaurant, bar, retail shop does is right now, don't focus on how to get back to normal. Don't focus on all the things that are going wrong. Figure out your website, like right now. Like, figure out, how do we create an e-commerce platform to sell things online? How do we sell things on Amazon? How do we sell things on Etsy? How do we figure out our Facebook shop? How do we figure out Instagram? Because that's where people are.
yeah.
That's where they are. Like, we need to stop discriminating locally how we're doing business, because it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
doesn't, if they're on the phone and they're searching, and that's the thing, is every single year, look historically, I know from our own analytics, more people are searching on mobile than on desktop. So if your site isn't mobile first and it's
Mm,
clunky and nobody cares and there's no easy call to action, buy barbecue. What do I do? Like, why am I on this site? Buy barbecue. Buy it
mm,
for pickup, buy it for delivery. You want a free cobbler? Put your email in. Now we have somebody they're getting a free cobbler. That's a call to action. They're coming to our restaurant. They don't even have to buy anything. We're giving them a gift. But we know once they come, they're going to want to try the barbecue.
cool.
We've already
Yeah.
given them something. But then they're going to get an email every single week that's going to tell them what's happening with the restaurant. It's going to tell them what's happening with the podcast, what's happening with our family, any kind of useful information that we can give. We do the email marketing. And that's something that's been very valuable for us to be where we are 12 years later.
You don't know how much gems you just dropped in that one sentence right there. And just saying, like, don't get committed to what was, get committed to what it is now, and actually just move forward and build that business first. And like, digital hospitality sounds like such a weird thing, but I could see what you're saying. If you're delivering the same things you deliver in person digitally, people are gonna talk, the same actions are gonna happen like they would do physically when they're in the bar. So is there in your future, you guys are going to scale back and just kind of run what you're running now, or duplicate that in multiple locations?
So we're going to add locations that will be distribution points. So we're going
Got
to
you.
open up 5 more micro locations. We're
Hmm.
going to slow smoke all of our meats, do all of our prep at a master location, and that will service the other locations,
Got you.
which is the most profitable that we'll ever be able to run. And it's the most exciting most excited I've ever been about our brand and about what we're going to be able to accomplish. And that's just on the barbecue side. On the media side is something that is going to continue to grow as well. We're going to
Gotcha.
continue to produce content. We're going to continue to help other people that we meet along the way that they want help with their website or they need help with their strategy for content creation, because it gets overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, as we've started to scale the media side of our business and we've started to take on clients, what we're starting to understand is that there already are marketing agencies, social media agencies,
Yeah.
SEO experts, and every one of them has their own focus.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also tech companies that are coming out saying, we'll be your marketing company. We'll post 3 times a week on Instagram. Quarterly, we'll give you photo shoots. We'll send out your email newsletter. We'll help you with a mobile first website, and it'll cost you $350 a month. So
Wow.
restaurants have been signing up for that. I mean, there's this platform that I found out yesterday, 5,000 restaurants have signed up for it. That's cheaper than hiring an agency, but it's also not going to be the long-term solution. Right
Yeah,
there, you're
because
checking the box to
yeah,
say, yes, I'm doing social. But then you go on those pages for what they're posting on Instagram, what they're posting on Twitter, and they're not engaging, not one like, no one
yeah,
cares. It's literally sending it to the abyss.
yeah.
It's completely different when somebody from your brand, even more importantly, you, that's what nobody wants to hear. No one wants to hear that they have to do it themselves. As a leader, if you do it yourself, it's going to put you, no one's going to learn more than you. You're going to
Gotcha.
learn the most. And every CEO needs to be on Twitter. Every CEO needs to have their own LinkedIn page. Every CEO should have their own Instagram page. Are they doing that? Probably not. But I
Yeah.
guarantee you the ones that do it, they're going to be the ones that are going to find all kinds of opportunities in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow, that's so deep. You you dropped so many gems so far. I hope the audience is really taking this all in. Now, I ask this question all the time. So there's somebody right now. They're sitting on the sidelines. They're dying a slow death. They got to go back to work, or they already came off furlough. They're going back to work, but they hate what they do. What advice would you give that person?
Number one would be to start owning who you are digitally.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that are afraid of publishing something that's personal, publishing something that's who I am. People are online and they're an avatar that isn't their name. Sexy Pants 619 doesn't work for Twitter. It doesn't tell me who you are, what you do.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, on LinkedIn, you have to be yourself, but start to care about your personal profile. Start to care about your personal bio. Start to care about who you are as a person and how you're showing up, and start to ask for help. David Meltzer is an incredible mentor to me, and he puts out incredible free content. But the greatest people in the world are curious, and they're
Hmm.
curious about the things that they don't know, and they're humble enough and smart enough to know that they don't know everything. So as much as I've learned about digital marketing and digital media, there are people that are way smarter than I am that I'm going to have on my podcast. Brendan Kane, who wrote 1 Million Followers, how he built 30 million followers in 30 days. He wrote this incredible book that I just finished reading. I'm inviting him to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
Why? Because I read his book and it's compelling. He did the digital for Taylor Swift. He's done it for Rihanna. He's done it for Katie Couric. And the strategies that he talks about are frankly completely different than what Gary Vee talks about. It was something that was very compelling for me. I tagged him in an Instagram story. He sent me 2 hours later an audio file personally saying, "Hey, Shawn, thanks for reading my book. This is Brendan Kane. I really appreciate it." I immediately sent him a 1-minute video saying, "Hey, this is Shawn Walchef. I own a barbecue media company. I also have a podcast called Digital Hospitality. I really appreciate what you said in your book, but more importantly, what you did in your actions, because that's what you talked about in the book. I'd love for you to come on the podcast to talk about it." And he agreed to be on the podcast. So
And
now
now you get to sit
I have
down with him for an
to,
hour and kind of
right.
pick his brain and kind of go through that. And you're getting pretty much free coaching just by having somebody on your podcast.
It's the internet oh shit moment. And
Yeah.
everyone has an internet oh shit moment that just, you can't be scared of having more.
Yeah.
No one wants to be rejected. No one wants to be ignored. But the more that you're rejected, the more that you're ignored, you just create more compelling content, a better
Hmm.
pitch. Who are you and what do you do? What do you stand for? I'm a barbecue media company. That's what I am. That's what I built. But I'm from San Diego. Like, I never thought I would be like a barbecue media company. That's the last thing I ever thought. I thought
Yeah.
I was going to be a fucking attorney.
Yeah.
That's who
So
I am, and that's what I do.
going into it now, it's almost like you building the media thing. You built a whole nother business. You have a restaurant, you have the media, you also are wearing merch on right on your head. That's also another ancillary like piece of income that you can make. It seems like it just has never ending tales of just kind of growing.
Yeah, and it's you are the sum total of the five people that you spend the most time with. So if you are spending time with people that think the earth is flat, that want to bitch and complain about COVID-19, about masks or not masks, or what's wrong with the world, you're probably going to start thinking like that.
Hmm.
But the internet allows you to find negative places, but there's
And
positive
positive places,
places.
a ton
Find the
of them.
people that are positive, that are doing great things that you admire, that they're sitting in the seats that you want to be, and try to have them mentor you. They don't even have to have a formal relationship. Gary Vaynerchuk is my mentor. I've been consuming his content since I found him in 2017.
Yeah,
I've never met him. I've
yeah,
sent a couple emails to him to thank him, but eventually I would love to be on his show, but I'm not going to pitch him. I've got to make the best content possible, build the best business to make them want me to be on their show.
yeah,
That's my goal. That's how I want to have my relationship with Gary Vee.
yeah,
That's what, no matter what business you're in, if LeBron James is the person that you care about, if it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter
yeah.
who's that person that you care deeply about that's doing incredible work in whatever field. Um, they're accessible. They're accessible because of social and because of digital.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. That's one of the reasons why I got back into podcasting because I love it. I consumed a ton of podcasts, a ton of like Gary Vee's content, and I was like, you know what? This is something I want to talk about. It's something I feel drawn to, and it's been one of the most opening things ever. It's like it just trickles, and it's one. And next, thing you know, someone who I might talk to you, and you're like, you know what? I got a friend, and I don't
Yeah.
know who your friend is, and next, thing you know, you're
Right.
connecting with this person, and the network just keeps growing and growing,
Well,
and
then
it,
you and I follow each other on social, and
yeah,
then you send out the link to the podcast, and I retweet it out, and I tell people to listen to it, and then somebody goes, "Wow, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to go listen to your podcast," and then
yeah,
they come and subscribe to your
yeah,
podcast. Now you've created this network of people who know who you are and
right,
know what you do,
yeah,
and you become top of mind. I mean, if there's two books that I would highly recommend to your audience, would be Story Brand by Donald Miller, which is really how you'll fix your website and
mm-hmm,
start to create compelling content. Because if you confuse, you lose.
yeah,
So you only have a limited time, a limited window
to kind
to
of
pitch who you are and what you do. Story Brand is a phenomenal book. He also has a great podcast. And then Top of Mind by John Hall is about content creation and about why that's so important and so powerful.
cool. I'm gonna cop those two books right right on Amazon tonight. That's awesome. Um, So if people want to reach you, they want to reach out to you, maybe they have a restaurant that they want to start making content for, or they are looking for, where can people reach out to you and find you?
They can text me 619-993-0230. You can Google Cali BBQ and whatever comes up will lead you to a page where you can directly contact me. Shawn P. Walchef on Twitter. That's where I live. And Cali Comfort BBQ on Instagram. You can hit me up in the DMs and let me know you heard the show. And if you're in San Diego, please hit me up and come for a behind the scenes tour of the restaurant. One of the coolest things by doing the podcast is I've had people from all over the world make it to San Diego, and their first stop was to drive to Spring Valley, hit me up on DM, and then me give them a tour, a behind the scenes tour of the restaurant,
Gotcha.
just because of that personal connection. I mean, I have somebody, Andrew from Washington. He's listened to every episode that we've ever put out, and he was on sabbatical from Microsoft and drove down to San Diego, reached out, and I was able to spend an hour with him, learning who he is and what he does. And he knows more about me than my staff, you
Wow.
know, because of how many podcasts we put out, and it's pretty cool.
Got you. That's awesome. Well, I do want to say I'm gonna input all those things, the phone number, the Twitter account, Instagram, everything in the show notes. So you guys will be able to reach out to Shawn there. Again, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for your time today. You
Yeah.
dropped so many gems. Thank you so much for that.
My last parting words of advice would be stay curious, get involved, and ask for help.
Nice. That's big. That's like everything you should be doing in life. That's huge. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Cool.